ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. And if you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, and I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh. Tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you, yeah. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh. That's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh. You can count on me 'cause I can count on you.
Man, that is so good. I wish I had Jalen's singing voice, that is for sure. Well, hey, welcome to Kensington. My name is Drew Daniels. I am with the 1829 Ministry, the Young Adults Director here at Kensington. I am so glad that you have joined us. So before we get started with our day, we have a few announcements for you. Number one, in about 2 weeks, we have our leadership gathering, which is on September 15th. It's a Friday night, and I'm telling you what, man, every single time I've gone to these, they are like my favorite moments in all of Kensington. They always set me on fire. We got Chris Brooks and Brian Tome. They are bringing the heat, so you don't want to be missing it. Also, the founders are going to be giving us a renewed vision for what it looks like to chase the one. So I am really, really excited. So you don't want to miss that. And it's really kind of an open event. If you are a leader of a team, we want to invite you, or a leader of a group, please come. But it's also open to you if you feel like you're an influencer in your sphere. We would love to have you join us. Secondly, as probably many of you or all of you know, last week there was a huge hurricane, Hurricane Harvey, that really devastated Houston, the city of Houston. And so we wanted to partner with the city of Houston. And the cool thing that I love about what we do here is that instead of just giving money away to maybe organizations, we actually want to partner with people who are on the ground in Houston. And so we have two churches, one which is called Woods Edge Church, so we're partnering with in Houston, and then also Pastor Tom Elmore, who's been a huge part of the Kensington family. His church is down in Houston as well. And so if you want to help and give and be the hands and feet of Jesus, then we would love to have you. You can donate in two ways. You can go to our Slick Kensington Church app that you can download, or you can text the word Kensington to the number 77977. If you want to take your phone out or smart, mobile phone and take a picture of that number so you don't forget it or whatever, you can do that, and we would love to have you partner with us in that. Lastly, we have a special midweek service happening on Wednesday night, September 20th, and it's going to be at the Strand Theater in Pontiac. It's going to be so amazing. This is an opportunity always for Kensington to go vertically with God and pursue Him and worship Him and give Him praise through singing songs to Him. And so I love this. I'm very excited for this. And what's cool is every ticket is $15, and all of the proceeds actually go to our school partners in Pontiac. And so you can get tickets online at Ticketmaster, but there's a surcharge. So we got you covered, and we're actually selling tickets in the lobby for $15. And as again, it's going towards a good cause, so you don't want to miss it. Well, hey, thanks for being here on Labor Day weekend. Why don't you go ahead, stand up, and meet a few people who also decided to stay in for the weekend. All right, well, we here at Kensington, we love to always have a little bit of fun. We like to have a little bit of laughs. So because we're talking about a brand new series, which is called Circles. And circles is referring to group and being in community. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. And so in order to get in the spirit of community, we decided we wanted to talk about some more famous duos. So we're going to have a little fun. We're going to talk about famous duos. So you're going to see one famous person from a famous duo appear on the screen, and y'all got to guess who the other one is. Some of them are tricky. So here we go. So first one, who is this? And the duo is? The best part of Toy Story. All right, so you got it. Easy. All right, let's move on. Next one. This is a level one. Robin. Oh, okay, that was good. All right, that was easy. Oh, maybe a flashback to morning cartoons? Bert and Ernie? Yes. Shabam. Oh, I'd be really disappointed if you didn't. Who is it? Who are we missing? All right, hold on. We got to do this test. No one ever told you that it's gonna be this way. Look at you. Raised in the 90s. All right, here we go, next one. Isn't it wrong when they made peanut butter and jelly in the same jar? It don't taste the same. All right, that's a good one. And then last one, this is SpongeBob, and then Patrick. All right, that's good. So speaking of famous duos, I happen to know one of the most famous duos, and before I tell you who that is, we're gonna go into a moment because, we wanna sing together as a family. And so moms, get your mom hands out right now. When you dance in, this is what you guys do, right? Dads, feel free to embarrass your kids right now. This is the moment. So we're gonna bring you back, and I wanna introduce you to one of my favorite famous duos. It's Jalen and Michael. They're such a famous duo. So let's take it back, shall we, Jalen?
You are my fire, the one desire, believe when I say, so yeah, I want it that way. Tell me why ain't nothing but a heartache. Tell me why ain't nothing but a mistake. Tell me why I never wanna hear you say I want it that way. I want it that way. All right, we're gonna take it back a little further with this next tune here. You ready? How many remember this one? All right. Feel free to sing it out. We've got Michael here, aka Neil Diamond 2.0.
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah.
There it is. Here we go, right now.
When it began, I can't begin to know it, but what I know, it's growing strong. Was in the spring Then spring became a summer. Who'd have believed you'd come along? I'm gonna do a Neil Diamond act in Vegas. Hands, let's sing it. Touching hands, there you go. Reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sing it out. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. I'd be inclined to believe they never would, but now I'm.
All right, now how many One Direction fans do I have out there? Huh? We're gonna light up some worlds. Let's do it. Ready?
Come on.
You're insecure, don't know what for.
Chance, Gilly.
You're turning heads when you walk through the door. Don't need makeup to cover up. Being the way that you are is enough. Everyone else in the room can see it. Everyone else but you.
Baby, you light up my world like nobody else. The way that you bring your hair makes me overwhelmed. But when you smile at the ground, it ain't hard to tell. You don't know you're beautiful. That's what makes you beautiful.
All right, and of course,
That's a good one.
we can't stop believing.
Oh.
Oh man. Go ahead, Catherine, take this one away.
Get those keys hands out.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train
Notice we don't-
going anywhere. Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit. She took the midnight train going anywhere. Strangers waiting up and down the boulevard, their shadows searching in the night. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Streetlights and people. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Streetlights and people. Don't stop.
All right, and of course, we gotta bring it back home to some Motown, all right? Here we go. Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
If you need me, go. No matter where you are, no matter how far.
Don't worry, baby.
Just call my name. I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry. 'Cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough.
like Drew said, we like to have fun here. I mean, that was a blast, wasn't it, right? All right, so now we're all singing out. Y'all sound great. Let's stand and let's sing this song out together in community, all right? Sing it out, created from dust. Created from dust. You came and you lived among us. You took on our frame. You walked in our pain. And now you're taking us higher. So now you call me your friend. Brought into your endless kingdom. By the blood I was made, no longer a slave. And now you're taking us higher as we go from glory to glory to glory. We'll never be the same. We'll never be the same. And we go from glory to glory to glory. We're forever changed. We're forever changed. Come on, sing this out. Until we reach that day where love conquers everything, we'll cry an anthem singing, holy, holy. Until we see that day where we're standing face to face, we'll shout an anthem singing, holy, holy. Yeah. Here's the good news. Sing it out. You took on the grave, so not even death can shake us. The victor has won, and heaven has come. And now you're taking us higher. Come on, sing it out. And now you're taking us higher. We go from glory to glory to glory. We'll never be the same. We'll never be the same. And you take us higher and higher and higher. We're forever changed. We're forever changed. We go from glory to glory to glory. Never be the same. We'll never be the same. You take us higher and higher and higher. We're forever changed. We're forever changed. Come on, give it up for Jesus.
Wow, that was amazing. Thanks, guys. Wow. Come on, let's give it up for them. Woo! Good stuff right there. Well, hey, as I said, my name is Drew. So glad to be here with you. And today, I'm very excited because we are talking about circles. Now, think about this for just a moment with me. The difference between a circle and a row. And we kind of borrowed, or rather I borrowed this kind of phrasing from a different church, but it's this. Circles are better than rows. And here's why. Because the rows don't know what's really going on. Because the rows don't show what's really going on in your life. And so it's easy to come into a row in this auditorium and hear from God and experience it maybe with a few close people that you love. But there's something completely different when you open yourself up to a circle of people and have to actually talk about what's really going on that the row doesn't know, and even talk about the drift that begins within that no one else knows unless you get inside of a circle of people. It's interesting, me and my wife actually, even though I've been kind of doing ministry for the past 3 or 4 years of my life right now, for me, I actually kind of was just so busy leading, doing different ministry kind of things that I actually, for myself, I didn't get involved in a formal circle of my own for maybe 1 or 2 years there. But it was really amazing because then when I actually got into a circle full of guys, I could just see how my life began to really change, number one, because these were people and men in my life who were pursuing Jesus, and because they were pursuing Jesus, I could be more like Jesus because of them. Because what I found out about God is this, is that God loves to change people's life through changed people. He loves to change people's life through other people who have been changed by him. And so actually being able to talk about who God is, who Jesus is, reminding myself of the gospel of Jesus, that it's nothing that I can do, but rather everything that he has already done. And in fact, me and my wife actually started a new circle with some of our 1829 leaders, shout out to them, some of our people who are leading at every single campus with 1829. And all of a sudden I just came to life because even for me, this has probably been one of the best small groups I've ever been involved in. And I just get to sit back and ask the questions. There's something powerful about a circle that you just don't get in a row. Am I right? So I got a question for y'all. Who in here is your sense of humor is to tease people? Like you love to tease people. What are my practical jokers? All right. You're probably pointing to the person next to you right now. That's kind of who you are, right? I got him. But growing up for me and my family, I was probably more of a sensitive kid. I was maybe more goofy. And so I didn't really understand normal little boy jokes, where, little boys would be like, oh, well, you're stupid and your mom's stupid too. And I'd like take so much personal offense. I'd be like, and I'd go home and I'd cry about it. But that only happened like 5 times, I promise. Anyways, okay, embarrassing, vulnerable moment. I gotta go read some Brene Brown. Anyways, so for me, that's kind of how I grew up. I was a very goofy kid. And so as you kind of grow up, a lot of times you think that you're gonna find someone else in your life who's a lot like you. And you begin to fall in love with people who are exactly like you. And so I met my now wife and I was like, oh my gosh, she's everything I've ever wanted. She's the girl for me, man. Like, do we just get each other, man? Like some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. But inevitably what happens is that you realize how different you really are. And so I began to realize the number one difference between me and my wife was actually our sense of humor. And she was the teaser. And it was from a place of, respect and honor, but it was kind of the man like, I am gonna get you so good. And so what she would do is, and this might sound weird to those of you who didn't grow up in the iPhone generation, but this is kind of what she would do. She would take her phone, right? And so for me, who in here also experiences shame when they eat certain foods? McDonald's, I'm ashamed. Chocolate, definitely ashamed that I like these foods. So my wife, what she would do is every single time I'd take a bite of chocolate, she'd take out her phone and get it from that really bad angle that makes you look like you have 1,000 chins. And she'd take out the phone and she'd sneak up on me. Right as I put the fork in my mouth, she'd just go, oh no! And I'd be like, oh my gosh, right? And I was like, so frustrated by this. But then all of a sudden, over time, it got very funny to me. And it was more of this mad respect for, man, you got me. So now, whenever she's doing something, oh no, babe, ooh, what are you gonna do? Ha, got him. And that's just how our marriage kind of works. Don't judge me. It's all the single people who are judging the married people, come on. But that's how our marriage just kind of works now. And this is something that I think is true, maybe for all of us, especially if you're married. You know this, I know this. If you hang out with people, is that we become the people who are inside of our inner circle. We become the people who are the closest, the people who delight us and excite us the most. We become exactly like them. And this happens with our greatest friends too. Even just spending time with your old high school buddies, all of a sudden you begin to act exactly like them, tell the same jokes as them. You begin to think the way that they do, right? And this happens, and we know this to be true. And it's interesting because I think for so many of us, we see this with our kids so clearly. Like, I don't want to have them hanging with those parents. I don't know those parents. Those parents are kind of weird. Like, you don't want them to hang out with them. But for ourselves, Sometimes there's this blind spot that we just don't think that same way for ourselves because maybe we're older or more mature and we know better. But the truth is that we become the people who are inside of our inner circle. And so we see this actually too in the Bible. I mean, even Proverbs, it talks about this. It says this, walk with the wise and you shall become wise. It says, don't become friends with a hothead or someone who has a bad temper because you'll learn his ways and you'll fall into his trap. In fact, one of Jesus' closest followers, his name was Peter, and he was sitting with some other Jewish people, his fellow countrymen who also believed in the God of the Old Testament, the Bible. And he's sitting with them, and back then, association by eating was huge. It was like a middle school cafeteria, like that is who you were when you sat with those people. And so he's sitting with these people, and God had commanded him actually to be friends and eat and associate with the Gentiles, those who were of the nations who didn't believe and worshiped other gods, because God had a heart for them. And so Paul, who's a new apostle and follower of Jesus, comes and confronts Peter saying, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're sitting with these people. You're acting like you're back in high school and you're afraid of what they think of you. Even if it's just for a quick moment, all of us just begin to settle in and become the people who are closer to our circle. In fact, even me, when I spend time, even just for a moment, of people whose language is just a little bit edgier, all of a sudden I begin to find that my language gets edgier as well. In fact, God in the Old Testament, he actually sets up this rule for all the Israelite people that they shouldn't even marry people who worship foreign gods. Because why? Because they're gonna become exactly like them. They're gonna turn their hearts away from God. In fact, King Solomon, who actually had the largest empire as the reigning king of Israel, he had this issue going on. And God clearly commanded the people of Israel. In fact, this is what it says in 1 Kings chapter 11. It says this, the Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, you must not marry them because they will turn your hearts to their gods. Yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyways. It's almost a certainty of betrayal that even just when you are married to someone else. And so he took it to the extreme because it says this, that he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. And in fact, they did turn his heart away from the Lord. In Solomon's old age, it says, they turned his heart to worship other gods instead of being completely faithful to the Lord, his God, as his father David had been. That even as he is just being in marriage, and all of my married people, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like if you're married to someone, you pick up everything about them. And if you're in close relationships in an inner circle of people, friends, family, you become like them, and your walk with God and your faith also gets affected whether you want it to or not. It is inevitable, it's inescapable, like all of us really have this. And so what happens is God gets really angry at Solomon for all of these wives and disobeying, because God had manifested his physical presence and voice 2 times to Solomon, twice. And he's like, all right, because I appeared to you twice and you still disobeyed me, I'm gonna take away the kingdom from you. Well, I'm not gonna take away the kingdom from you. I'm actually, because I love your dad so much, he was my boy, King David, I'm gonna take it away from your kid. And so Solomon dies, and then King Rehoboam, Solomon's son, he is gonna take the throne. And so King Rehoboam, this is what we're gonna look at today, he has 2 inner circles. Number 1, he's an inner circle of wise counsel that his father had set up, and then he also has an inner circle of his boys, y'all. And so these are the 2 circles that we're looking at. But before we kind of get into that story, here's a little bit of context. In that time, Solomon, because of the way that he, wanted to have this magnificent kingdom that he could build for himself, he had 2 major construction projects. Number 1, the temple of God that he built, and number 2, his own personal palace. And so it would take a lot of money and people and upkeep to keep these going. And so Solomon placed a huge yoke upon the nation of Israel. And what a yoke was actually a tool that was put on oxen to be able to plow land. And this is also very synonymous with forced labor and abuse of people. And so he had a huge yoke upon the nation of Israel because of all the taxes of what it took to keep the chariots up to date and the large military and to pay all the salaries of the commanding officers. I mean, it was just so much money. And then on top of that, to really top it all off, what he had is that he forced the Israelite people into labor, something that they hadn't done since maybe the nation of Egypt when they were slaves. And so this is where we pick up our story, is that King Solomon has just died. God's gonna potentially remove, as he says, he's promising us all, he's potentially might remove it from his son, King Rehoboam. So Rehoboam, he comes to get anointed king in Shechem, which is the northern part of the nation of Israel, where 10 of the tribes of the 12 are dwelling. So all the people come out to see him get anointed king, and they bring this request to him. He's a brand new king. Hey, can you please lighten the service? And so this is where we pick up our story. So this is what it says. And all the assembly of Israel came and said to Rehoboam, your father made our yoke heavy. Now, therefore, lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke on us, and we will serve you. So then King Rehoboam, he responds, he thinks about it, he says, you know what? And so he said this, go away for 3 days, then come again to me. So the people went away. And so King Rehoboam, he begins to take some thought with this, but he's beginning to experience some temptation of his own. He had this magnificent kingdom that his father just gave him. So he begins to get tempted. He's like, man, I don't know. I love this huge palace. I love, all the workers that I have. And if I remove the yoke of forced labor and taxes, man, I might not have enough money to keep this whole thing going. And he wanted the grandeur of the kingdom. He wanted the splendor. So he's getting tempted, number one, by power. And then also, is he really gonna give into the requests of all these peasant people? I mean, he's the king. Shouldn't he be king of the whole thing? So he begins to have maybe some temptations in his heart, giving him some time to really think about this decision. And I think this is true of our lives too, is what happens when all of us get really tempted. We begin to withdraw. And so this is what King Rehoboam actually does. Then King Rehoboam, he goes to the wise council with the old men who had stood before Solomon his father while he was yet alive, saying, hey guys, how do you advise me to answer this people? And they said to him this, if you will be a servant to this people today and serve them and speak good words to them, when you answer them, then they will be your servants forever. And so then as the temptation kicks in even more and more, says this, but he abandoned the counsel that the old men had given him, given into the temptation. I think this is what happens with all of us. Maybe all of us have places of wisdom in our life that when temptations come, we withdraw from wisdom. When temptations come, we absolutely withdraw from wisdom. And this can happen in so many different places. For instance, one place that I think maybe as you're growing up and you experience this in your life, we withdraw from wisdom maybe with our parents, right? Like we withdraw, that's what Rehoboam said, by the way. He said, I'm gonna do me. See, he said it in verse, we withdraw from wisdom. This is some stuff that we do. We withdraw wisdom from our parents. For some of us, others of us, we withdraw from church, and then others of us maybe withdraw from accountability. So keep these up for just a moment. So for parents, this is what I realized. If you were like me, man, when I was a teenager and I was growing up, I hated going to youth group. I hated being involved in church. It was the last thing I wanted to do. I wanted to binge watch Lost because that was the hot show on. Still is the hot show. If you haven't, anyways. So, feel me? All right. So for me, I just wanted a Netflix binge because y'all know I wasn't really doing my homework, teenagers. We all know you're saying, well, I'm doing my homework. Yeah, really, okay, unless you're like 4.0. So I didn't want to go to youth group at all. That was just not my thing. And I wanted to withdraw from what I knew maybe was good for me. And so my mom kept pushing, and I wanted to withdraw and kind of isolate myself. And I said, I'm gonna do me, kind of like Rehoboam said. And you saw that he said that. And so for me, I withdrew from that, but my mom forced me to go. And it was there that I actually joined a circle of people who I felt like accepted me for who I was. It was the first time maybe ever in my life that I fully felt like I was accepted and fully felt like I really belonged in that community. And I started a relationship with a guy named Nick Smith, and I would not be on the stage if it was not for that relationship. And he was my youth pastor at the time. That he was the person who made me excited and interested in my faith. And so in fact, I worked with the teenagers for the past 3 years in the Edge Ministry High School and then middle school. And parents, I just want to encourage you, if you're a student, they say statistically speaking that the number one time where a person's going to take their faith seriously in life is in middle school. And if they don't follow it past middle school, the statistics go way down. And so for you, if you're a teenager, I want to encourage you to get involved in a circle of people who love Jesus. And personally, having been there for the past 3 years, I can tell you that there are teenagers who are legitimately pursuing their faith and they love Jesus. And I promise it's not like, hey, let's play some games. Like, that's awesome. Like, we love playing games. It's really fun. Like, it's a blast, as every youth pastor used to say, right? A blast. But for you, you'll actually begin to meet other people who are really taking their faith seriously. And so don't miss your moment or your opportunity, and don't withdraw from wisdom from maybe what your parents are starting to encourage you in your faith journey. The second one, man, is church. right? And I understand this. I think with church, sometimes we can withdraw from church, maybe if we feel ashamed for maybe what we've done in our life, or we feel guilty. But what I've realized, and in fact, actually statistically, before I get there, what I've realized statistically, you know the number one demographic to drop off of church the most? Literally 18 to 29-year-olds on the nose. And I ordered this book, and I read the title, and I began to read some of the research, and I've put it down, and I don't even want to read it because of the content of what it says. Not because it's a bad book. It's an amazing book. It's by Barna Group. They do 13,000 phone interviews to figure out this data, so it's legit. It's not just fake. And this is what the title of the book's called. Ready? You Lost Me. The story of every young adult, if you're between 18, if you're in your 20s or 20-something, is that the church somewhere in there lost me. For a lot of young adults, it wasn't necessarily the message of Jesus or what happens in the Bible, but rather there's somewhere in there where we felt like the church lost us. And there's some legitimacy to that. Man, we here at Kensington, we try everything that we possibly can to really reach out to people, especially 18, 29, man, we're gonna give you a text, we're gonna give you a phone call. But for me in my life, it's easy to withdraw from wisdom and look at church and say, man, hey, you guys lost me. And so for me, I'm not gonna be a victim in this generation. I'm not gonna be a victim and just say, hey, this church, it lost me, but rather I wanna be a person who's gonna place myself in community. I'm gonna be a person who places myself in the realm of God so I can learn to be more like him in my life and not just sit here and pretend like everything is just for me. So I'd encourage you, in fact, if you're a young adult, we have a worship night on September 22nd, and we really care about circles. We're actually launching all of our groups, and so if you wanna be a part of that, come talk to me. I'll be out in the lobby afterwards. And lastly, many of us withdraw maybe from accountability in our life, and this is probably many of us, that we're not involved in a group, we're not involved in a circle of people who really know what's going on, what the road doesn't show in our life. Like we've withdrawn from that accountability over time and time again, and slowly we begin to drift away and nobody knows what's really going on. In fact, no one can even really love the real you because nobody really knows the real you. In fact, I was actually a part of a next generation cohort where I was interacting and interfacing with a lot of next generation pastors. And there's one guy who's at this cohort, and he kind of seemed more aloof and more checked out. And everyone else was trying to get to know each other, get to know each other's lives, exchange phone numbers. And this guy seemed like he was kind of better than it. He'd been in ministry for a long time. He knew better. And so by the last installment of this cohort, we looked and found that this guy was no longer there, and we just didn't know what had happened. What had happened is that he showed up to a hotel late at night and got caught and arrested for a prostitution sting. Is that he showed up late at night, and in fact, he was not only just arrested, he was arrested by a man who actually went to their church and knew exactly who he was. And that some of us in here, we have unchecked stuff. And it doesn't, man, and even I've realized in my life, it doesn't matter how much Bible I read or how many times I read it in a week. It doesn't matter how many times I've prayed. If I'm not actually addressing the real hard issues in my life and it goes unchecked and I withdraw from accountability in my life and who I'm accountable to, man, it goes unchecked. So these are some of the ways that we withdraw from wisdom. Now earlier you saw a slide pop up of what King Rehoboam said, right? He kind of said, I'ma do me, right? Like that's kind of what he said. And so this is him. He withdrew from the people. Yeah, see, this is what he said. I promise, that's what he said. That's what he said. And so he isolated himself from all of his friends and his counsel. But what happens when you isolate yourself and withdraw wisdom, there's always somewhere else that you need to belong. Because why? We're wired for a relationship. So guess what he does? He leaves his inner circle of wise counsel, and then he begins to go towards a new circle. And this is his boys and his buddies from the kingdom. And it says this, and he, meaning Rehoboam, took counsel with the young man who he had grown up with him and stood before him. And he said to them, hey, what do you advise that we answer this people who have said to me, lighten the yoke that your father put on us? Now notice the difference of language. He says, we. When he went to the council of the old men, what did he say? He said, hey, how do you advise me to handle these people? He says, you know what? He goes back, he goes, yo, dog, what should we do, bro? Like he's coming back with his boys, and that's all of us do. When we retreat from accountability, we withdraw from wisdom, who do we go to? The people we can relax and just have a good time, have a fun time. And what happens is, I'ma do me always turns into a we. There's always somebody else. This is inescapable. You can't just isolate yourself, but rather you go back, and what happens then? You become exactly like the people who you're getting your advice from. You begin to walk and talk. And so here's some of the we's that maybe we have in our life, and that even I have in my life. We is your inner circle. Maybe it's your coworkers who you spend more of your time with. It's the boys. It is the ladies, right? It is the family, even your family. Like, these are some all examples of the we inside of our inner circle that we have. And so here's where we pick up the story, where King Rehoboam, here's what his boys say. This is what they say. And the young men who had grown up with him had said to him this. All right. Hey, thus shall you speak to this people, bro? Dude, listen to this, man. Your father made our yoke heavy, but you lighten it for us. All right, this is what you're gonna say. And I'm sure there's like a dude in here. He's like, dude, all right, here we go. It always starts with a dude, right? Dude, all right. Dude, my little finger is thicker than my father's thighs. Oh, like my little finger, like thighs actually translates to loins, and loins translates to thighs. And so he goes, and now, this is what they keep telling him, dude, and now, whereas my father laid on you a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions. And so what they would do is they would pick up scorpions in the desert, they would dangle them in front of the Israelites, and they're scorpion boxing. I'm kidding, that's not what they did. A scorpion was actually a different form of a whip. So the whip was one thing, and a scorpion was a 2.0. It had probably sharp metal on it, and that's how they disciplined people. And then all the people, King Rehoboam, he tells all the Israelites, hey, I'm gonna discipline you with scorpions. And when all Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, the people answered the king, what portion do we have in David? Now, what does this mean? Well, King Rehoboam was the grandson of King David. And so what they're saying is we have no relief. We have absolutely no comfort in the king and the family of David. We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel, look now to your own house, David. So Israel went into their tents. And so what actually happens here as you kind of read the scripture is that the 10 of the 12 tribes actually splits apart, and they have no part in King Rehoboam's reign any longer. And so King Rehoboam, he actually sends a guy out to try to do the forced labor and get all these 10 people in, and the people just kill him. And so he gets on his chariot and he goes back to Judah in the city of Jerusalem, and he reigns down south with only 2 kingdoms out of the 12. And thus God's prophecy comes to pass. And isn't it funny that King Rehoboam, in his temptations, when he withdrew from wisdom of the wise counsel and followed his inner circle, he lost actually everything that he had originally wanted. And he lost everything that he was tempted to have. And I think that's a lot of our life, is like, there's nothing that we just get away with. There's no alternate universe that when we just give into our temptation, that consequences just don't happen. In fact, I really believe this, and listen, and don't miss this. I really believe that sin is prepackaged with consequence. That's already a part of the deal. It is the batteries included. You never really get away with it, because that's just what happens. That's what sin does to us. And so he could have had the entire nation of Israel. He could have been the anointed king. He missed out on the influence that he could have had on all the people, to have to influence them towards the God that they served. He missed out on being the king that was in charge of the whole thing. And guess what? Now he was known as the king who actually divided the nation, God's chosen nation of Israel, for all time. And it stayed like that for many, many centuries until they got exiled. And I think this is true of our life, is that the way that Rehoboam's we affected his me, and I think this is true for us, is that our we always affects me, no matter what. It's inescapable, because we become exactly who we are around. And so who are we around? The boys will either strengthen your marriage or they will divide your marriage. The ladies will either encourage you in your image or bring you grounds for more comparison in your life. Your coworkers will drain you, or they'll bring health to your heart. Our we always affects me. And you know what I also know? Is that our we, if it has Jesus at the center, it'll change our lives. And I think about the small group that I was just in. The we that I had Jesus at the center, And my life began to get transformed because I was able to confess what was going on in my life that I was just afraid to. It wasn't the fact that somebody sat there and they said, you need to be more like God. You need to do this. You need to do this. But rather, it was me being able to vocalize where I truly was in my walk and being honest about it, saying like, hey, I haven't pursued God in a minute. I haven't really been in my prayer life. I haven't really been doing anything to follow God or pursue in my life. And so for us, if Jesus is at the center of our we don't need to attend more programs. We don't need to learn more Bible, even though it's the word of God and it's so important. But what happens is we need to have people in our life who have Jesus at the center, because when we're around people who are like Jesus, we will become more like Jesus. You know what's interesting? When I actually talk with teenagers, this changed my life, because I was like, I need to be a person who has Jesus at the center of my life, so that when people encounter me, they're encountering God. And so I had teenagers come up to me all the time after services, and they'd be like, I'm really struggling. There's this guy, and I'm like, oh yeah, tell me about this guy, and I try to like coach them through maybe what they were thinking about. And at first, all I would do is try to give them what I thought they needed. But then I stopped that. And whenever they were on the fence of being like, man, I just felt like God spoke to me, I'd say, all right, hold up, stop. Can I preach to you for just 2 minutes? I ask them every time, 100%. Yeah, sure. I'd be like, all right, can I just tell you what I believe is most important for your life? And they'd be like, yes. And I sat there and I preached Jesus, always and only Jesus. And I said, hey, God loves you as a plan for your life. Like, you're sinful and fallen, and Jesus came to save you. And so when you give your life to him, it'll change everything about you. It's not about you trying harder. It's not about you being better. It's about Jesus being transformative. And I needed to be the person, because for so long I needed to be the person who was like Jesus and pointing people to Jesus, so that people could have a transformed life, so that I could be the we that had Jesus at the center. And then what happens after this is when your life gets transformed, your life also gets mobilized. Your life is on mission, because now all of a sudden, like, you have found what it's like to be Jesus, and you just want other people to know that so bad, because you know exactly what it was like to be lost, and now you're found. You know exactly what it's like to live in darkness and unchecked, unconfessed sin, and now you want other people to experience that freedom too. You know what it was like to be in an addiction, and now you know what it's like to be free. You knew what it was like to go home and feel like your life had no purpose, and now it has purpose. I wish I had one witness in here. Is that when your we has Jesus at the center, people become more like Jesus. And so I want to encourage you in 2 ways to be involved in a circle or a group. That you need to get in proximity with a circle. Get in proximity with people. Get close to them, and then get protective over your circle. Get protective. Protect that Tuesday night. Protect that Wednesday night. That these are the people that you're going to invest in. And because you know why? Because you know what it's like to be half-hearted about so many things in your life. You do it. I know exactly what it's like. But protect the circle that you're in. And this is why we do this time of year in September. Is because we know that if people just come in here and are in a row, that it's going to be completely, and it's going to be amazing. Like, I believe you're going to experience God. But if we can get you in a circle of people, your life will really be more likely to be transformed and mobilized by Jesus. So actually, I want to tell you a quick story about one of my friends. His name is Chase, and I met him at a Man Up retreat. And by the way, if you're a man and you want to experience life change, you want to get in a circle, then Man Up is actually happening from October 6th through 8th, and there is limited spaces, so I want you to sign up. But man, it's so amazing, because if you're like me and you need to have like some escapism in your life, and you're afraid to maybe have your life change or do the hard work of your heart in front of your wife or your girlfriend or your kids, Man Up is an amazing circle. And I cannot tell you, this is the most powerful men's retreat. I still remember Dave Wilson's message from 2 years ago, and it changed my life, and I think a lot of other men can. So please, if you're interested in getting a circle of dudes and getting in a cabin, I strongly encourage you to sign up. But Chase was in this place where he was really wrestling with God, and he actually went up north all by himself just so that he could hear God's voice. And he went to Man Up, and he had an interesting experience. But actually, we have a quick video, but before we kind of jump into this video of Chase's story, I just want to take this moment to receive our offering. So if the ushers would love to come down, I think if you're new here, there's no pressure to participate or to give, but rather I believe that when we have open hands and when we have generosity in our hearts, it can really help bring about even more circles, more groups, more transformation of people, and I love that about Kensington. But once again, no pressure. If you're new, you can let this moment pass. But Chase's story is an interesting one, and I want to encourage you to see if you can find yourself in his story. Check this out.
My friends and I, we've been together since we were in kindergarten. Some of my earliest memories as a child are with these guys that I grew up with. And so we were just kind of inseparable from a very early age and up into high school, and then our first few years of college, like we were always together. My freshman year of college, my parents got a divorce. It was messy. It was really hard, not just on me and my family, but on our community as well. I didn't really know where to turn, and my friends were there. I really started to see them more as a family than just friends. And that kind of took a turn for all of us when we got into our freshman year of college. And that's when, we all kind of got shown the party scene, I guess. We all started drinking. Some of us started doing drugs. I can sit back even then, and I knew what I was doing was wrong. But I didn't care, and they didn't care. Right before I graduated college, I met my fiance, and she brought me to Kensington. There was a part of me that was like, you know what, maybe I will try church again. Maybe this is the time that I start doing good things again. I felt like I could kind of still live my life the way that I was doing it, and go to church on the weekends and be okay. And I could still have my friends, and we could still hang out, and everything would be good. But there was still, I can't explain it. There was just still something missing. There was something internally that there was a hole, and I couldn't fill it. And that's when I kind of took notice, and I would say, I really started seeking after God. I went camping by myself up north with the one goal of finding God. I definitely think that, God spoke to me up there and said that that I'm opening these doors for you right now to meet new people, to kind of transition your life, and you're not walking through them, and I need you to. When I came home and I talked to Erica, she said, I definitely think that you should go to Man Up. It's this men's retreat that's going on in October. I was like, yeah, that could be great, but I don't know anyone. Like, there's no one there that I'm connected with right now. I'm not in a small group. I don't know anyone really at Kensington, any guys at Kensington that I could, connect with or do life with. And so it's kind of scary for me. I went knowing my intentions. I went knowing that I'm close. Like, I'm very close to, like, giving God my all. And I just didn't know what was stopping me. I think it was Sunday morning, Dave Wilson spoke, and it shook me. And I knew that morning that I needed to talk to someone. That's when Drew Daniels, guy I just met maybe a week ago, came up and sat down next to me and just started talking to me about the weekend. And Drew's like, dude, like, what's going on? Like, I feel like you're close. I feel like you're ready to have a relationship with Jesus. Like, what's holding you back? And that's when I was like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But it's something, and I need to get rid of it. And so he was like, you want to pray? And I was like, yeah. So he starts praying for me. And then he's like, okay, like, you pray. Like, I don't pray out loud to people, like, I pray in my head. And, but I did. And I said, Jesus, like, I'm done. Like, I'm done running from you. I want to experience the freedom that I know that you're going to give me. The week after I came back from Man Up, I called each and every one of the guys and had a separate conversation with them saying, you know, hey, I just wanted you to know that I gave my life to Christ, and I'm going to pursue my life I'm going to change my life to follow him. And I felt like you guys needed to know that. And I still love you guys, and I'm still going to see you, and I want to, you know, hang out with you, but I'm a different person now. Through Drew, I met some other guys, and through those guys, I got hooked up into a small group, and I was there every week, and I loved it. I just want to know Jesus more. I want to learn as much as I can. And that's what, you know, this group did. You know, I was able to learn not just, you know, about the Bible. I can study the Bible by myself, but I was able to talk through real life situations that these guys were going through, that I was going through. You know, I don't think that I would be as far as I am right now, which I still got a long way to go. We always do. If I hadn't found this community of new guys, of people that love Christ, that, you know, I can still have fun with, that I can hang out with, that are going to be just not only friends, but family again. Friendship now, it takes a whole different perspective for me. The fact that I have a group of people that I know genuinely love me, that I know would do anything to help me, but also are going to teach me along the way, that they're going to hold me accountable for my actions, that they're going to be honest with me through love. I don't know where my life would be if I didn't take that step to go to Man Up, that I didn't take that step to just talk to someone, to join a small group, to you know, be vulnerable with these guys and take a chance. And if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. There's so much that has happened because I have found community, and that I have found these amazing group of guys that I can't imagine not doing life with.
What a lot of people don't know about Chase's story, as we show this video across our campuses, is being in that moment with him. He was all by himself in the gym on Saturday night of the retreat. And he told me that since the entire retreat had gone on, his cabin group, which would have had 2 circles or groups at that point, just hadn't met both times. And he purposely come to this retreat just so that he could talk to people about what was really going on in his life. And I remember sitting across from him in this little booth in the gym at Spring Hill, and he said, I just want to talk to some people about what's going on in my life. And I said, oh my gosh, do you want to just go upstairs really fast and talk? And it was like midnight, and we stayed up there for a few hours, and he just began to unload about sin in his life and things that had been going on in his heart and what we couldn't believe in God. And I just remember being there for him and teaching him about who Jesus was, giving him the gospel, and allowing to actually be that person in community. And it was just by God's grace and provision that just lined up. And I just said, hey man, if I want, I'll pray, and then you can pray. And he just surrendered. He just gave everything. It was that clear moment that he just dropped all of it and gave all of it away. And I remember that lit me on fire, because it was like, this is what it's about. It's not about just coming here and having a great talk. And like, that's awesome. But you know what it's about? It's like people passing the line from death into life. That's what it's about, is that people are gonna experience eternity with God because Jesus changes lives. And my question for you is that I think all of us, when it comes to a circle or joining a group or being a part of having accountability in your life, is that all of us have walls. All of us have these walls or barriers. Maybe we don't know how to be vulnerable or actually open up, or maybe we're too ashamed of our past, or maybe we feel like we've been walking with Jesus for a long time and we know better than to be where we really are. Or maybe some of us, you don't know anything about God and you're embarrassed because you don't want to show up and be around all these people who know about God or talking about God and you have no clue. And this is where we would invite you and to say, hey, Jesus is good. He's gonna take one step at a time. And in fact, I wanna just invite you into this moment because I wanna ask the Holy Spirit of God in this room to help break these walls down and to give us courage where maybe there's fear. So if you'd like to go ahead and stand up and join me as we sing to break our walls down.
Fullness of eternal promise, stirring in your sons and daughters, earth revealing heaven's wonders. Spirit come, Spirit come. What you spoke now is unfolding, and all your children shall behold it. Dreams awaken in this moment. Spirit come, Spirit come. So pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Now the world awaits your presence, and this power is within us. We will rise to be your image. Spirit come, Spirit come. Sing it out, pour it out. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. So pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Our Father, sing it out. All of heaven roars your name. Sing louder and let this place erupt with praise. Can you hear it? The sound of heaven touching earth. Whoa, the sound of heaven touching earth. Our Father, all of heaven roars your name. Sing louder and let this place erupt with praise. Can you hear it? The sound of heaven touching earth. Whoa, the sound of heaven touching our Father, all of heaven roars your name. Sing louder and let this place erupt with praise. Can you hear it? The sound of heaven touching earth. Yeah, the sound of heaven touching earth. So Spirit, break out, break our walls down. So Spirit, break out, heaven come down. Sing Spirit, break out. Whoa, Spirit, break So pour it out. Let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. So pour it out. Let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. So pour it out. Let your love run over. So here and now, let your glory fill this house. So pour it out and let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Come on, give it up for Jesus.
Father, we thank you that your spirit is alive and well, God. We thank you that you can break our walls down, and because of your love that's so quiet and so sweet, and because Jesus, that you are the Savior King who has risen from death to give us life. And God, I just pray that we wouldn't refuse your call, that we wouldn't miss the opportunity, but rather we would hear your voice and obey the inkling that we have. We thank you in your name. Amen. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming out. In our lobby, we actually have a table that's set up for groups. If you're interested in joining a group or being a group leader, we need that help too. And that's in our lobby. If you are brand new here with us at Kensington, we have a table called Starting Point where you can learn about Jesus and what we do here at Kensington. And finally, if you are needing some prayer, we have some prayer down front and out in the lobby. Thanks so much. See you next week.